Hello everybody, this is part 2 of the Can We Train a Lexica Aperture model from the outputs of the Lexica Aperture model. Apologies, I don't have a camera on this computer. This is my Windows machine that I use for training, so I thought I'd show you the process, and there's a handy thing on GitHub called StableTuner which we use for this. StableTuner is really awesome because it lets you train and refine your datasets and do either dream booth training or more intense fine tuning for models with Stable Diffusion. In my eyes and through everything that I've tried to date, StableTuner has the most easiest and straightforward UX for training models. So we need to get this on our computer. I've already done that. I'll link the GitHub below. There's very easy instructions to install it. Basically, it tells you exactly what you need to do. And let's load it up now. So I need to come into my computer, find Anaconda. I can put Anaconda here. And then I need to go into the StableTuner folder. So I do cd StableTuner. And then I need to run the command to open this up. And the command is StableTuner.cmd. When I do this, it's going to load up the Anaconda environment, which will then allow us to start training. So if I then drag this across, this is how StableTuner looks. You can choose between Dream Booth or fine tuning, and you can choose which model you want to input. So you can train off specific models, or if you have your own CKPT file that you want to train with, you can put that as the base model. If you want to add a VAE, you can do so, and you can define an output folder here. So I was training a model on female portraits with about 300 plus examples. I haven't actually put that live anywhere yet, but I will be doing that soon. But let's just train something completely new. So I can come in and you'll see that I've done a bunch of tests here. Let's just make a new folder and we go Lexica testing. And we can choose this folder as where we want the outputs. And we want it to convert to a CKPT after training. They have all of these Telegram API stuff if you want to get updates to Telegram. We don't need to do that. And then we get into the sort of different settings. But one thing that I think is really awesome about this is the caption buddy. Because if I pull across this is the scraped data from Lexica, right? So we have these images, and I can go across, and these are all of the images that I have got from Lexica. But you'll notice that I haven't got prompts for them. I literally saved the models as a UUID, so it's just a random string, whereas really we would want something a little bit better. So how do we solve this? Well, we solve it with a tool called Caption Buddy, which is in StableTuner. We hit Caption Buddy. It's going to load up a different UX for us now, which looks like this. And from this, we can load up a folder. So we can then choose our folder. So we go in desktop and we're going to find our Aperture and we're going to go select folder. And you'll see that it's got one of 6890 and it's using something called blip to automatically give a prompt for each of these images. So you can look through, you can see what it says for each of them. And if you want to change something, you can do it. So say I'm trying to train a model on photorealism and it keeps saying painting when I really want it to say photo. I could come in here and I could put replace painting with photo to get a more realistic prompt. But for the sake of this, I'm not going to do that. But Again, if I wanted to have a trigger word when training a model like this, what I could do is I could either put at the start, like Lexica style, or I could put that at the end, right? So I could put Lexica style at the end. And what that would allow me to do is it would append or prepend each of these captions with this at the end. So this is really cool, and it's a quick way to quickly get captions which are important when you do training. So say I wanted to batch do all of these, I could just click this button and it will run through all of them. Like, let's just do that to show you. We get this message saying batch current folder, save output to same directory, and if we hit that, we will then get it starting to work. And it's starting to work now. Just where is the usually loads me up with a little message that I can see, but I can't see that at the moment, so that seems to have been hidden somewhere. But you'll see from this text document, it's adding all of these text files, which are the same name as the image files. And if I click on one of these, you'll see that it's giving a description for each of them. And this is really important when we get into training. So this will take quite a while to do because obviously we are doing it for 6,890 of these images. So what I'm going to do is I am going to cross this off now, and hopefully that will have blocked it. Oh, here was the batching. The batching was happening here. So I missed that on my screen, but let's just cancel that now, and we can cross that off. So that has cancelled all of the batching of those inputs, but we can then get into what we want to do. We want to do a fine tune because we're doing it on so many images. So then we can come into the settings. There's a random seed that you can change here if you want. You can choose whether it's a regular, in-paint, or depth to image. You can use Xformers or another method. Xformers is good for a powerful GPU. So let's use that because I'm doing this on a 4090. We can choose what resolution we want to do the training on. We can choose a batch size. So for larger data sets, you can sort of run it at a batch size of 30. The higher the batch size, the more intense it is for the GPU. So you need to have a pretty good GPU to get sort of up to 30. I wouldn't really go above that, and make sure that you have sort of at least 30 images of the same dimension. Otherwise, it's going to, if you only have one of a certain dimension, then it's going to duplicate that image 30 times just to get to the batch size, which is going to screw with your outputs because it's going to screw with the data set and how that looks. You can choose how many epochs you want to train it on. I tend to find that 100 is a really solid number here. You choose the precision, 8-bit atom to make it more efficient, and you can choose the learning rate. Some people like to set this to 1 instead of 3 for a more sort of loose learning. So it can be fairly interesting. And then there are a bunch of other steps. If you hover over the titles, it's going to give you some information on them. Generally, don't need to change those. And then we come into the data set, use text files as captions. Yes, because that's what we wanted to do. Use image name as captions. We don't want to do that. All the balanced data set. No. Add class images to data set. We don't want to add any class images for this. And we want to use aspect ratio bucketing. Something that you might know when you're doing Dream Booth training is that generally it works on square images only, right? So you put your square images in and you train it best on square images. Whereas with aspect ratio bucketing, you can use any image, and you don't have to cut it to a certain size. You just chuck it in, and it will automatically take all of the ones at the same aspect ratio and put them into different sort of buckets for the training. And it works really quite well, and it saves a lot of time and not messing around with bulk editing files and making sure all of that stuff is good. All of this other stuff tend to keep the same, and then we come into the sample settings. So we have, when do we want to sample it? Do we want to sample it every, no, do we want to sample it every couple of steps? So we have 500 steps, it's going to make a sample, and then every 25 epochs, it's also going to make a sample. And this also means it's going to save a CKPT file at 25 epochs, and then 25 epochs, and then 25 epochs. And you'll see, because I was doing a model on female, trying to do a photorealistic one, I was doing the sample prompt as a lingerie model, full body portrait, and I added the tag that I have created for this model here. But if I was to train, this Lexica model now, I'd probably look for something else. So what I could do is I could literally just go to lexica.art, find something like this, and I could copy that one in there as our new prompt setting. So then we have the data, and this is where we can load up the different concepts. So here is the female portrait one that I had. You'll see here, I had the token name, female portrait, I had all these images, and I had loaded the path. We're going to remove that, and we're going to add a concept, and we are going to data path, aperture, select. It's going to load up these images. Because this is such a big data set, and because we want it just to really replace a style, we don't actually need to give it like a name, so we don't have to put like Lexica style or anything, because it should have such an influence on it that we can just hit save. We're not putting any classes, we're not bothering with any of that stuff, and we hit save and we're good to go. And then you'll notice that we have there is a generator in StableTuner. If you want to play around with prompts that will generate images from your data set, you can do that, right? So let's just try one. We could say professional professional office photo shoot of a brown-haired American real estate manager with a big smile, casual clothes, DSLR, 4K, high resolution, and we will put in the negative prompt, grainy, anime, cartoon, and we can watch this generate. We could put this as 20 steps, or maybe we want to test it. And this is really good just for testing your model. So you see, this is the output from the female portrait model that I was training at the 100 epoch stage. So this was as trained as I was going to get it, and I can see how that's going to work. So I can hit generate image, and you'll notice here, if I drag this one across just to show it, and let's just put female in here as well, because I just got a male output, which isn't great. So how can I show all of this at once? I guess if I put this here, and we put this here, and then I put this down here, you'll see. So I'm doing all of this on a 4090, so it's pretty fast at what it does. But I can hit generate, and I can start testing my model, so I can see how the outputs look. and the outputs are pretty good. I notice that I don't really get the photorealistic look that I'm going for, and a lot of the eyes are screwed up. So I could try a few things to try and fix that by maybe doing a higher step count and seeing if that fixes anything, or I can try using a different sampler. So the schedulers are super important on these things. So you'll see here I've used the PNDM and also the DPM. The Euler Ancestral is really what I like to use. So we'll just roll through these. And this is what I like about StableTuner. It's just a really solid product for being able to build models and also being able to test them prior to putting them in a product or using them or doing what you need with them. So this is the Euler Ancestral, which I quite like. With some upscaling technology to fix the eyes, you're going to get a lot better outputs here. If we were to put the step count up again, we are probably going to get some better outputs. And if we also put the height up to more of a portrait, that should also have an effect. And you'll notice how the step count and the resolution slows it down slightly. But you'll see these images, they're pretty good. The eyes are messed up. So that's something that needs to be considered for a future training, to be able to fix the eyes and make them better. But I'm happy with the way that this is sort of developing. Let's just go crazy and do 150 steps just to show you what happens if you do a lot of steps. You do a lot of steps, you often end up with a more sort of burnt image. So let's show you that. And you see it takes a ton of time. So the image is here. I wouldn't say it's anything better than having a lower step count. So that's why you tend to find people use lower step counts, because it's a heck of a lot more efficient to run. So this is all running on the power of my computer without using the internet. Let's get back to training the model. So we are in StableTuner and we have everything set up for the training. The only thing that I haven't done is I haven't got all of the images captioned like they should be. So I'm going to turn this off, although I should really have it on, because we're just going to show this and I'm not going to do the training fully, but I'm just going to hit start training to show you what happens. Configuration change, regenerating latent cache. So I say OK, and you'll see that it starts booting up now. And it will start getting the training ready to go. And you'll see it's loading up the images. It's saying about the batch size of 30. How is it going to run with 30? And then it's going to generate the latent cache. This is a fairly large model, so this is going to take some time. I will probably pause the video here, just wait for this to complete to give you the full overview of how this looks like. So I'll be back in 10 minutes when this completes. Welcome back. So we've just had the latent cache done. Then we get these handy little shortcuts if we want to save anything, if we want to quit, if we want to open the GUI so we can play around with the model, we can. And then it goes into the training. So because we had set up to do samples, it's going to do those before it starts the training. And if I come into the folder where we are going to get the outputs from the model, you'll see here that we have this sample folder. If I click on this sample folder, we get these outputs. So this is that prompt that we added from Lexica, and we'd expect this to improve over the course of the training. So we can come into the samples and see when it does that, when it reaches the steps and when it reaches the epochs that we set. So it will give a sample every 500 steps, and it will also give samples every 25 epochs. And then if we come into this, and I guess because I'm recording, this is super long at the moment because I'm using part of the GPU for the recording. It's not as fast as it can be, but you can see we are training this to 23,000 steps. Every epoch is 230 steps, and we get sort of a timer. So it's going to take 20 minutes per epoch. It's going to take 34 hours, nearly 35 hours on the current state of things. I think if I wasn't training, it would be a lot quick. If I wasn't doing the video, it would be a lot quicker than this. But this is just a sample of how this looks. So I just wanted to sort of put this together for you. And as this runs, you just let it run and run, and you come back, check the samples, check how it is, and you will eventually get your completed model. And if I was to come into a folder with a completed model, note that was training data for a web design model. Let me see if I can find one. Yeah, so we have this female portrait version 2, where I was doing samples every, let's see, doing samples every 500 steps, and every 10 epochs we had samples. And we also have the different epoch diffuser files. So these are ready to go if I wanted to load these up. And I have a CKPT here of the 100 epochs. So just showing you how things look after one of these has fully complete. I'm not going to train this now because I have already done it. So this is part 2 of this video in the series of can we train a Lexica model based on the photos on the Lexica front page here. So we now have taken these images, we've captioned these images, and we've trained the model using StableTuner. In the next video, we will be taking that model, we're going to be playing with it, and we're going to be comparing it to different Lexica images. And if you know me, you know that I'm working on Riku, and I'm also working on an image generation tool called Supermachine. If you want to try this out for yourself, you can do so in Supermachine right now. It's under Supermachine Lux. And if you want to try this out in Riku, I will aim to have it for you to try by the end of today. It is the 8th of February. So stay tuned. If you want early access to try this model out for yourself, go to Riku or Supermachine after this video has come out. And if you are interested in this series and seeing the final part where we do some comparisons, stay tuned. That will be live in a couple of days. Feel free to leave a like on this video or subscribe. With Riku, what we're doing is we're trying to make it easy for everybody to experiment, test, enjoy, and deploy everything AI by providing an aggregated place with all of the best large language models for you to play with without having to go to multiple sites, without having to do multiple different logins and get lost with all of your stuff. We bring it all into one place for you. So making it easy for you to play with AI. Thank you.